Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Odoo online webinar on manufacturing. My name is Mathieu Germain. I'm a business advisor in Belgium at our offices here in Europe. And today, during this 1 hour long presentation, I would like to cover what Odoo can do in terms of manufacturing. You'll find my details here at the bottom of the page. If you have any questions about what you have seen today, or if you want to discuss your project with me in the future, please don't hesitate to just write me an email and we can get in touch. So before going into the actual demonstration of the software, what I want to start with is to share with you the problem that we're trying to solve here at Odoo. So to bring you a little bit of context, this is what we're trying to solve here at Odoo in terms of the manufacturing industry needs for software management. So actually what we see when we look at how manufacturing companies are operating today, based on our research, we see that the average manufacturer might use as many as 10 different applications to run their business. What it might look like is something like this. So you would have various systems in place to manage various aspects of your manufacturing operations. You might have, let's say, Microsoft Dynamics to manage the MRP and the inventory. You might have some Excel spreadsheets for quality management. You might do your maintenance in Hippo, which might be linked to an accounting in QuickBooks, and so on and so on. As you can see, in order for the system to work, it needs to be a lot of connections between these different softwares. Why is this a problem? Well, typically connections between softwares, it's always complicated. So that also means it's going to be very expensive. It also means it's going to be time consuming to make, and also it's inefficient for many reasons, but also mainly because you have to maintain these customizations with time, and again, it will be expensive and time consuming. Also, another problem on top of this, here are some screenshots of traditional MRP software that if you are in the industry, you might be familiar with. Those are screenshots of some of the most popular ones. They don't look very attractive. They're difficult to use. They seem outdated with what software is capable of today. So this is the problem we're trying to solve. And before going into more detail, here's a brief look of the solution we came up with at Odoo, which is a series of interconnected modules that will allow you to manage the various operations of your manufacturing operations. Um, just as a general comment, all of what you will see today is going to be very easily be managed using tablets. For instance, this is why you have an image of a tablet here on the bottom of the screen. Typically, this is a tool that workers on the shop floor will want to use in order to follow work instructions or carry on the work that they're supposed to do. Any questions about that, feel free to get in touch. So this is how it looks like. In terms of the concepts behind that, this is what we're trying to cover. A lot of terms here you might be familiar with. Let's just consider how we look at it at Odoo in general. What we have, first of all, we have what you're trying to make here on the left-hand side, how you're trying to, or how you are distributing it to your customers on the right-hand side over here. So those are the big pillars of your company today. And in the middle of that, we have a series of manufacturing tools, modules, applications that will allow you down to the shop floor level to manage the routings that you need to make a specific component, the worksheets that you want to share with your employees to tell them exactly how they should conduct a specific operation for it to be successful. Quality control points in order to make sure that your goods are made to up to specific standards. Planning, scheduling work orders for specific people in the business and being able to rearrange that based on workforce capacity and workstation capacity. So those are all aspects that we cover in Odoo, and I will try to cover as many of these today during our presentation, which will be about what we call the MRP suites of applications. So the flow I will cover to do that is the following one. There are 9 main sections. I'll try to follow that as best as I can. We'll start with some planning. We'll imagine that we've received a request for a specific demand of customer orders, and we'll plan that in our system. After that, we'll manufacture the goods. We'll check the quality of those goods during manufacture. There might be a quality alert because of something not complying to the way we wanted to make that specific component. We'll start a root cause analysis. Based on that root cause analysis of why that problem arose, we'll go through an engineering change order. We'll have that engineering change order, which we define here as the ECO, approved by one of the managers, and then we'll see how we can keep a track of the different versions of our product bill of materials as a result. Before I go on to this flow, I'll remind you that there's a chat attached to the video. If you want to share any questions during the presentations, please do. And at the end of the presentations, I'll go through the chat and I'll try to answer as best as I can. So let's start with the planning. So in the planning, usually in manufacturing, there are 3 main concepts in which you want to manage the planning of your manufacturing based on the customer demands or based on the types of products that you are making. So we like to think that we cover these 3 types of planning in Odoo, and we call them as such. First of all, you have the master production schedule, which is a timetable that you can rearrange by days, by weeks, by months of how you want to plan your demand, and have Odoo trigger manufacturing orders based on the manufacturing lead times as a result, so that everything is planned on time. Usually, this is when you don't want to keep a large stock of specific goods, and that you just want to make based on a specific demand that you've analyzed previously. Then we have the minimum stock rules. Those are for goods that might be more popular and that you always want to keep track of in your inventory. You'll say, let's say for a table that we'll be covering later, I always want to have 5 of these minimum in my stock and a maximum of 20. And so based on the various deliveries that you will do, Odoo will trigger automatically manufacturing orders to replenish your stock so that it gets to the optimal level that you've defined previously. And then finally, we have the make to order route, which might be for maybe very expensive goods that you very rarely sell, and that you only want to make when a customer places an order. We'll cover all 3 right now. I'll do a small demo of how these features are represented in our manufacturing tools. And keep in mind also that we'll do some more specific planning afterwards to see how, once the top level demand has been established, how can we, as a manufacturing planner, as a manufacturing operator, make sure that these things can be done in respecting the capacity of our work centers and of our workforce. So let's go right into it. So in order to show you this, I've prepared a database here. This is Odoo 13. We release a new version of the software every year. Odoo 14 will be coming up in end of September this year. If you haven't signed up already, I'll remind you that the Odoo experiences this year will be online, and you'll be able to follow the product release, where also for the manufacturing modules, new features will be added. So, yeah, so let's go right into the product that we are going to cover today. The product that we will cover is a table. If you want to access the product catalog of the products that you make, you simply go into the manufacturing module over here, and you can go into your products over there. We get an overview of all the products that we manage in our stock, and I can take the table over here. All right. If you go to the table, you'll see there's a lot of information that you can populate in advance to help you with your planning. And all of this information will be found in the inventory tab over here. So we'll take the first example for now, which is the master production schedule demand treatment. For that, what's very important to keep in mind is that you want to have your manufacturing lead time established and advanced in the database. Okay, here it's important to know that to manufacture such a table, it will take us 5 days. All right, so for now, if you have that and you have specified the fact that it's something that you manufacture, you can already go into the planning section of your manufacturing module, go into the master production schedule, which, by the way, is a feature that you have to activate from the settings of the manufacturing module. When you open that tool, you can add a product. Here, we will simply add the product that we want, which is the table. And here, along with the choice of product, you can specify a few other things over here, which are quite important. So first of all, you have the safety stock target. So this is the stock that you always want to have in your inventory, regardless of demand. So it's similar to a reordering rule, except that it's simply a small safety cushion to always make sure you have a specific amount of tables in your stock. The minimum to replenish is the minimum amount of manufacturing orders that you want to schedule at once. Maybe you don't want to start a whole manufacturing line just to make 2 tables. Maybe it gets only worth to start an operation if you have at least 10 to make. So this is what you can configure over here. And here you have the maximum to replenish, which is given a specific amount of time, you can only make that many tables, and therefore, if you have an unrealistic demand, Odoo will never launch a manufacturing order for more than a specific amount which you've defined over here. Again, the best thing to do is to simply create a Odoo test database and play with these values by yourself to see what is the best system for you. So over here, what we have, once we've selected the product, you have here a month view. So we have for May, June, July, August, September, various columns here, rows here on the left. First of all, you have the static inventory. Odoo tells you, okay, you have 1 unit at the moment in stock of that specific component. Here is going to be the first field that you'll be able to populate. This is the most important field actually for this table. It's the demand forecast. So based on what you think, you can now say in June, I expect to sell, let's say, 5 tables. And then in July, I expect to change maybe to sell 8 tables. And you see here, based on these various entries that you make, you have seen some changes happening in that table. So here what happened is, for instance, for the month of June, we are going to start with an inventory of 1. However, our demand forecast is of 5, which means that we need to make a replenishment of 4 manufacturing orders to get to meet that demand. All right, and then what you can do is that you can replenish your various cells. Odoo here will help you in order in the way that as soon as you simply put the cursor on the replenishing button, it will show you what cell it's trying to replenish at that moment in time. At the moment, I have already here done the reason why you see the 7 over here. I'll just show you, it's because we already have manufacturing orders for 7 tables here in the system apparently. So here, however, and the reason why it's red is because Odoo tells us that the demand here is 0 and you're going to make 7 tables. Watch out, you're going to make too much based on the demand, and this is why it's red. Here, however, let's concentrate on the column here in June and simply hit that button over here. If you replenish, you see now that in the actual replenishment, Odoo has triggered an order for 4 manufacturing orders. If we leave that view and we go to our operations here in the top menu of the manufacturing module, you see indeed that we have a new manufacturing order which is planned for the 27th of May for 4 units of my table over here. So why the 27th of May? It's because it's for the first week of June. We have a 5-day manufacturing lead time, so the latest Odoo is telling you you should start that manufacturing order is going to be here on the 27th of May. All right, so that's the basic level. Now, there's a few things that Odoo does quite well in that manufacturing planning, is that it's dynamic. So let's say that you review your demand and you say, actually, the demand is not going to be 5, it's going to be 2. So you can change it in the system, and you can see whether you have already started the top level planning for these goods. Indeed, here you have Odoo puts the cell in red again to tell you, watch out. You are about to start manufacturing orders for 4 tables, however, the demand is only 2. And it works the other way around also. So if you now review your demand to a higher level, let's say 10, then here the cell is going to be orange, telling you that you need to replenish again to start a manufacturing order of not 4 but 9 quantities. All right, so that's the top level planning over here, and actually it works with all of your subcomponents also. So the table over here, I'll just show you the bill of materials of that table. So to do that, you simply go to the product form over here. Here is our table, as you can see over here. And if you go to the bill of materials of this product, you can see what products is making up that table. Here we see we have 1 unit of a tabletop, we have 4 legs, we have 5 bolts, and we have 10 screws. You can also visualize that structure in various ways. If you go to that section over here, you have a more industry standard view of this bill of materials, where you can also see things like the operations that are to be done to make that final product. We'll get to that operations in a second. So what I'm trying to say with this is that this table has components. So you can, if you want, you can also add these components to the manufacturing planning, let's say the table leg, and you will see that here it's dynamic also. So here Odoo has automatically created an indirect demand forecast based on the demand of our tables, and if we want, we can replenish these cells also. You don't have to do it this way. You can also create a mechanism in which the goods here, the BOM components, will be automatically replenished as soon as you replenish the top level product. All right, so if you have any questions about that, use the chat, or you can get back in touch with me later on also. So just for the purpose of today, before I forget, I'm just going to cancel that manufacturing order over here and go to the second concept which I want to cover with you, which is the minimum stock rules. This one is going to be very quick. This is simply a mechanism we have on the product itself, which is here at the top of the product form. where you can specify minimum and maximum stock rules. And it also works with manufacturing. Typically, it's something you use for purchasing if you have a lot of different products that you want to keep track of. But you can also use it for manufacturing. So here, I can create a minimum and a maximum quantity. Let's say that at any point in time, I want to have at least one table in my stock and a maximum quantity of 3. So what this means is that if Odoo is going to 1 or below 1, um, is going to is going to notice in the system that you have 1 or below 1 component in your stock. It's automatically going to trigger the rule that refurbishes that component in the system to get to the maximum level over here. To do that, it will run what we call the scheduler. Here, I'm going to do it manually, but keep in mind that you can automate that and have it run on specific frequencies, once every minute, once every hour, once per week. You can configure that in the system beforehand. So I've just done it now, and normally, if I go back to my manufacturing operations over here, indeed, I see that I have a manufacturing order, a new one of the source here. This time it's not the MPS, but it's an automatic operation in the system for 3 units of the product. Okay, and automatically, as before, we have the BOM that appears, the entire number of components that you have to use to make that component that appear. So that's the second method. I will cancel this one also now. And then you have the final one, which is the make to order method. So this one, it will trigger a manufacturing order as soon as you sell that good. So in order to activate that feature, it's quite simple. You simply go to the product form again. We'll take the table over here. And in the inventory, you see here, there is an option called MTO. You activate it, and that's it. That's it. You also have to have, of course, the BOM associated to the product. And then, if you go to the sales process, and you will create a new sale order for a customer, let's say Google, is ordering one of your tables over here. You can save it. By the way, it will always also either tell you the amount of stock that you have in your inventory, or it will tell you whether it's something that it's replenished on demand. And here, so you can simply save it, and you can then, everything looks all right. We have a table for this price. It's okay, I can confirm. As soon as you confirm that sale order, you have the manufacturing order that is created in the backend, which I'll show you in a second. But you also have various other things that are happening. For instance, here you have the delivery order that is created for that good to that customer. I'll just briefly show you. If you go there, this is typically something we will access from the inventory module. You have here a table to deliver to the customer Google, okay, which you can print the delivery slip automatically here and attach to your order, and that's it. But before you deliver that product, we'll go back to our manufacturing module over here. And if you go to your operations, you have a new manufacturing order, which is created instantly in the system. This time, what's interesting is that the planned date over here is the 24th of May. So those planned dates, they tell you basically the limit date by which you need to make that system to keep your customer promises. So here, what this depends on is that, as you maybe saw in the product from before, we have a 10-day customer lead time to deliver that product, and therefore, if I want to deliver on the 1st of June, well, I need to start working the latest on the 24th of May. So that's it. We'll get back to this in a second, but I'll let you have a brief look at it. So, in the meantime, we'll go back to the presentation over here, And what I want to show you now is that the concepts that I covered until now, those are general concepts that help you to prioritize what manufacturing order should be done when. But we also go further than that. So we also manage planning on a Gantt chart where you can keep track of capacity planning, that is how many work orders a machine can do at the same time, and you can adjust if you see that something is not working properly. So before I show you that in a bit more detail, what I'm trying to say is that when you do planning in general, well, you have to differentiate between planning at the top level, which is what I've just shown you up until now, and scheduling on the workshop level. And the scheduling on the workshop level, it uses individual work orders, which together make up a manufacturing order. Today, the example that we are going to cover is going to be very classic because to make a table, we only have one work order, but you can have, the fact where you have various work centers and various work orders per work center, and in that case, the Gantt chart view might be useful. So I'll show you that in a second. So if we go back to the manufacturing order over here, the manufacturing order number 12, we see that the deadline is the 24th, but we also see that we can plan it over here. So to plan it, you can here directly plan it from the manufacturing order itself. We have that typical Odoo calendar view where you can choose the months, the years, and so on. Let's say that you want to plan it for tomorrow, and you want it to start maybe at 10 a.m. All right. If you want, you can also assign it to one of your co-workers in the workshop, and they will receive a notification that they've been assigned to a specific work order. Yes. So here that seems okay. As soon as I hit plan, Odoo is going to plan that manufacturing order from the 20th of May at 10 a.m. to the 20th of May at 10 a.m. and 2 minutes and 7 seconds. So this is not very realistic, and I'll get back to that in a second. This is only because Odoo, in order to keep track of how long it takes to make a component, keeps track of the last manufacturing orders that you've done in the past. So as I was running a few tests before today, on average they took me 2 minutes and 7 seconds, and that's why Odoo is automatically creating that for 2 minutes and 7 seconds also. If I go to the planning here, I can look at the planning by work center, and I see that for my work center assembly line 1, I have on my month view over here, I go to the day view over here. If we go to the 20th of May over here, we have indeed the manufacturing order number 12, which runs from 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 2 minutes, and you can move it also here. So if you have various, let's imagine that you had two at the same time over here, you could take one of these work orders and move it to a different time frame that is a better fit. And if you go to the manufacturing orders again, you see that it has now moved also here on the plan date. So that's something that you can use to visually quite quickly realize what needs to be done. Also keep in mind that Odoo can do quite a lot for you at this stage. So if you go to a work center, so let's say the assembly line 1 over here, if you go to the settings, well, you can specify a capacity over here, for instance. So you can say that work center, well, it can do 5 work orders at the same time. So in that case, Odoo will all trigger them at the same time. However, if you put 1 and you get 5 work orders, it will trigger them one after the other. So there is a certain amount of automation that can be put into it over here. And also keep in track that typically also, just like any manufacturing operations, we have standard preparation and cleaning up times that can be assigned for your various work centers. All right, and also here, I think this is something we might cover later on. You have for that specific work center the cost per hour that you can define, so that you also can keep track of the cost, the exact cost of well, how expensive it is for you to make one component. So there you go. So this is what I was trying to cover right now with this small demo, and also keep in track that, so this is what I was talking about before with the 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Odoo has a innovation here as opposed to other softwares in the way that you can, if you want, add a automatic clocking to your various work operations so that you can well follow the process with time and see and have a realistic view of how long it takes to make something rather than have to do the research, follow a specific work order, use a timer as we still do a lot today, and translate that onto the bill of materials later on. Here, Odoo, as shown in this small screenshot, it tells you, do you want to compute a work operations based on a time that you set manually? So you say that work order, it's always going to take me 45 minutes, or do you want Odoo to do it for you automatically and with time update you on how long it takes to make that operations, and you can do an average of the last 10 or 100 or 1000 work orders. All right, so that was about the planning. I hope that was clear. Again, if you have any questions, please use the chat or email me at mgm@odoo.com. So now let's go into the manufacturing part. So this is the automatic next step we have here after this step. So we go back to our Odoo database. And here it's important to specify that actually the manufacturing part has mostly been designed for tablet use. So if you want to use it from a computer, and you see here that we have a work order to launch for that specific work center, you can use the computer view over here, which is the one I'll be using today. But you can also, if you work from a tablet, simply arrive at that nice user-friendly view where you see very quickly what you have to do. Here I see I have to do 1 unit of a table. It's based on work order 0012, and I can start right away. Or you can use the computer view today over here. It's a bit more classic. Then you can say, okay, all right, here I have on my assembly line number 1 unit to do of the table. You can look at these various at the various details of the manufacturing order. So you can preview the work instructions over here. So we have 4 different pages. You can look at the current production. So you can say, okay, so this is the list of components that I'm going to need for that manufacturing order. You can maybe go get them in the shop floor. You have a time tracking that you can follow. Here you see, okay, I'm supposed to do it in 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Here, once the order will be finished, you will have a breakdown of who worked on it when and how long it took and so on. And here you can keep track of the finished steps. Maybe you want to preview it to see exactly what you have to do. First, you have to take a picture, then a quality check, then measure the angle, then the table lays attachment, and so on and so on. So this will help you prepare a little bit more. As soon as you're ready, whether you're working on the tablet or the computer, the view is going to be very similar. You simply hit that process button here at the top left, and you end up in this view that we've designed to make it as easy for you to follow those instructions. So here, for instance, I see that I'm on page 1 of my instructions. I'm asked to take a picture. I'm not really sure of what, but okay, let's just take it over here. I'll take a picture, I'll upload it on my computer, and I can upload the picture over here. You can also zoom if you want to make sure to better see those instructions, for instance. Okay, that seems all right. We can go to the second step. The second steps over here, I have small instructions here at the top, which tells me check that the fastenings are in good conditions. Here I have a small image that tells me how to do it. So if I check really quickly and I make sure that they're okay, I can pass my quality check. Here I'm being asked to measure the angle formed by the two adjacent wooden panels at the bottom left-hand corner and indicate my measure over here. So it seems that I have to measure the angle between those two frames over here. Let's say I found 85. I can validate it, and here Odoo tells me, watch out, you failed the quality check, you measured 85, and it should be between 88 and 92. Okay, so you say, we'll correct it, maybe we'll do it again, maybe, I don't know, we need to maybe attach those legs a bit more carefully, and we'll redo the measure, we do it again, and we say, okay, indeed, this time we found 90 degrees perfectly, so that's great. And you can validate that process. So, all right. So now you're on to the next step, which is here on page 4 of the instructions. Please attach the legs to the table as shown. We'll go next. And then I'm being asked here to encode the table legs and lot numbers. So each of these legs over here, they're being traced by a lot number. And if we want, we can select it from either a pre-existing list here on the interface, or we can even create and edit it. It's up to you also. This is where a lot of manufacturing businesses are going to say beforehand how they want to work. If they want to allow, for instance, the fact that we can create a lot number on that specific process, or you need to choose from a specific view, in that case, we'll simply select over here. Usually this is the safer alternative. So we can validate that step over here. And here I'm simply being asked to print my labels. Again, I can do it here. I get a small error message that tells me that we did not specify the serial number for the final product. Indeed, this table is a very expensive table. We want to trace it with an individual serial number. Again, here you can either choose from a list of pre-existing numbers, or every time you make a table, you want to create a new individual serial number and print your label as a result. So here you can preview it. It looks like this. Okay, great. And here, let's see. Okay, sorry about that. So here we've printed. So let's see that it has. Oh yeah, sorry. We also need to specify a lot number for the table top, which is that part of the table over here. Here, I'll simply create a new one over here. Right. Oh, here indeed, it's telling me that I'm not allowed to create a new serial number, so I'll just use one that I have here in the list. I'll just select this one over here. Okay, there you go. So you've seen here a few examples of how that manufacturing process can be quite well predefined. Once you finish all of the steps, well, you get an overview over here of all of the various steps. You can see the different checks and whether you have succeeded them or not, and what were the values that you received. For instance, here in the case of the angle that we measured, you have the report which is here. All right, so now we finished that manufacturing order. If there was another one to do, it would appear here in our list, but at the moment it seems that everything has been done. And I'm just having a brief look at the OEE over here. I don't know if you can recall from before, it used to be a little bit higher. It's because the process took a bit longer. As you can see, I had a few errors and then I had to close my window and so on. And here it seems that we completed the process in more than 2 minutes, which is therefore which is why we have an OE that reduced. If you go back to the manufacturing order, before we close it, we can review the work order itself. So here I can review, as I was showing you before, the time that it took me to make it and who did it. So here I see that it was me in both cases who worked on it, and actually for 3 minutes and 7 seconds it seems that I was working on reduced speed, so actually it took me 5 minutes and 15 seconds to complete everything, whereas I was expected to do it in 2 minutes and 8 seconds, which is why the OEE has reduced also. But okay, it seems, however, to be alright, so I can now simply mark it as done. 1 second. Yeah, so I think I did a small mistake earlier when I specified the lot number for my tabletop over here. Let me just check something. Indeed. So actually, the reason why Odoo is giving me an error message over here is because that the lot number which I specified for the tabletop had already been used before, and therefore it's telling me you cannot use that serial number again for another product in the system, and therefore it's actually blocking me from validating that manufacturing order, because it's telling me there is something wrong with the manufacturing order. And this is where it's very important to on that process to define whether you are going to be able to use existing lot numbers, or that you are going to be forced to every time create a new one to avoid this sort of issues. So here, unfortunately, I can't validate it. So that's also a good example over here. All right, so now that we finished our manufacturing order, we can go back to the presentation, and we can continue with the flow. Before I continue, yes, so this was an important aspect of the message I was trying to share today. Odoo allows you to work quite well with tablets on a workshop. As you've seen, these views are ideal when you use them on a portable device. You can track time, display the worksheets, you can scroll between the various PDF forms. The register production buttons are quite big. They appear at the top. They appear green also as the logical next step of the process. You can record serial numbers quite easily, but you have to be careful not to make a mistake and to set it up properly. But yeah, so again, the best thing to do is to try it by yourself. So now let's go through a quality check. So how does that work? So in order to do that, we'll go back to the manufacturing order. We'll create a new one over here. We'll create a manufacturing order for a table. We'll save it, and we'll simply mark it as to do. So what I want to show you here in this example is that you can involve your quality teams in the process of your manufacturing, and people who are actually building the product, the people who are in the best position to know whether a product is well engineered, or it respects the standards that you set out at the beginning. Well, they can communicate directly with the quality teams, and actually it's quite simple in Odoo. So I'll show you how that works. We'll just plan that manufacturing order for now, and we'll go into the work order. So if I go in my work order over here, and I process it, so you remember here we had that example where we are asked to take a picture, right? But we don't know of what actually. So actually, this is quite frustrating, because I imagine that five different people are going to take pictures of 5 different things. So what we can do in the various options that we have here in the manufacturing module, first of all, we can block the process if we want to. We can, however, also do a quality alert directly. If I hit on that button over here, I can specify, first of all, the title of the quality alert, and I can say instructions and click. And here I can give a small description of the process, and I can say when creating the product, when trying to process the first step of the manufacturing process. Sorry, manufacturing process. And here note that it's quite practical because the product is already specified for you. So you don't need to explain them exactly of what product it is, or it's already written there automatically. And you are also here automatically showed as the responsible for that product. So you can say we are asked to take an image, but it doesn't specify of what exactly. Alright, so you can say this. You can even specify the lot number that you're currently working on if you want to. And you can also put in a tag, or imagine the quality team might want to do that later on. So you can raise that issue with the quality team. Alright, so then you can pause the process, and you can say, I don't want to continue until I know what to do over here. So you pause your process, and in the meantime, you wait for the reply from the quality team. So what happens on the side of the quality team, so they use a different module. They might use several, but one of the modules they might be using is the quality module over here. They might be spread up in different teams, so you might have the main quality team over here, you might have the metrology team over here. So by default, it went here in the main quality team. You could have specified that on the quality alert also. You see that they have received a new quality alert. So they can go into it. They enter into the structure where they see, okay, we have for the product table, a quality alert, instructions and here. They open it, they see exactly the message that you have sent them, and they can now work on it. So they can first of all maybe go to the product. They can look at the bill of materials over here. They can look at the routing. So the routing is the way that you've designed the manufacture of that product. They click on it, and they can look at the steps over here, and they can see here, all right, so in the very first process, indeed, there are no instructions. So they know that, they confirm, and they say, all right, corrective actions. They can write you an alert over here. They can say, please take image of the left bottom corner. All right. And so this will be the instructions for the manufacturing worker, and in the preventive actions they can say need to change the routing instructions. Right, so they can do that here. In the miscellaneous over here, what they might also want to specify is the vendor that is associated to a specific part. So if there was a part defect, for instance, which is one of the recurring quality issues, they can assign it to a vendor, and this will help them to do the reporting afterwards. In the meantime, over here, they can put in a tag for the root cause. So it's a work operation failure, and it's a high priority because it's the very first step of the process, and it's a main quality check. So they can save it over here. And so that's all clear over here. And before we go back to the manufacturing orders, before we leave the quality module, you'll be able to do quite a bit of reporting on the quality checks that you have in the system. So you can do over here, first of all, how many quality checks are usually passed for the various manufacturing orders. You get that breakdown table over here, but you can also do it on the quality alerts. And you can see over here maybe a breakdown of the various tags. So over here there's an even spread between work center failure, parts, the quality of your parts in the system, and the work operators. And keep in mind that you can do quite a bit of reporting over here behind that, and and increase the quality of your manufacturing as a result. In the meantime, what happened in the manufacturing is that if we go back to the operations over here, we have our latest manufacturing operation over here. We have the quality alert, and so the worker directly looks at the message over here and sees what he has to do, and now he can go back to the manufacturing operation and carry on his work. Okay, so this was for the quality check. So I'll see if I missed out anything over here. We had the alert, we wrote our message, um, we, um, we, we identified the root cause analysis, and we identified also preventive action, which I'm going to cover in more detail in a second. But before we do that, I briefly also want to mention that Odoo can keep a track of the overall equipment effectiveness of your various work centers. We had a small example earlier, when the work order lasted longer than it was supposed to. We have here for every work center an OEE that can be specified, and it will be indicated over here directly. If you go into it, you will have an idea of why that fully productive time over here is only at 69 point something percent, and you'll be able to identify the major issues of why a specific process or a specific work center is not operating at full capacity. And again, like in the quality module, you'll be able to do your reporting over here. You can do it by date, for instance, or you can even do it by work order. All right, so you can see the performance issues at the moment. We're only making a table, but if you have different products, then you can also maybe identify yourself what needs to be changed and where it needs to be changed. So this is quite a big factor for you. If you have a lot of machines, a lot of workers, a lot of processes, this will definitely help you to prioritize where you want to do some problem solving. And also you have this really cool color code which is based on the configuration of your work center. So if we cheat a little bit over here and we put a smaller target, well, over here the color is going to be green because we are overachieving. So that's a small comment on the OEE. And those are the small overview of the different topics or the different factors that we keep track of in Odoo and that might be influencing that OEE. So because we're talking about efficiency and effectiveness and so on, we have to talk about PLM also. PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management. It allows you to review the way you do things, review the way you make a component, review the way you create something, simply review your various processes. And the way Odoo does that is very flexible. So you have a structure which is very customizable, and you can create various types of PLM change orders, but instead of talking about it, I am simply going to show it to you. So if we go back to the database over here, we have a dedicated module for it, right next to the quality module over here. It first starts off by showing you the various sections that you can work on in the system, so the types of changes that you want to carry on in the system. If we're introducing a new product, we'll do it through here. If we want to do a product improvement, we can do it right over here. So here what we're going to do is that we're going to change the routing of the manufacturing of the table to make sure that it's simply more clear for the employees. So to do that, you simply go over here and you can create a new change order over here. Before I go into the details of that, the structure you see over here, it can be completely customizable. For instance, here in the in progress section, you can edit that stage, and you can say before it gets validated, well, I want to have my manager approve it. Okay, so you can see it's the manufacturing engineer. The user that is associated to him is Mathieu Germain, and he needs to approve the process, or it's optional, right? So he can. I've just added an extra step over here because if you're changing, your products, you might want to have a bit of a traceability on approval or not. And over here in the validated stage, you can again edit, not cancel, but you can edit it over here, and you can say, okay, if we put it in that stage, we'll allow the changes to apply, which will make a new version of the product in the system. All right, so for the structure, let's simply create a new entry. So we'll say routing change for table product. All right, so you can here select the type of PLM change that you're making. You can decide to specify it on the product, on the bill of materials, on the routing, or on both. So on the bill of materials and the routing, change both at the same time. In that case, we're simply going to change the routing. The routing over here, it will be the table assembly routing. You can have it effective as soon as you put it into validated or at a specific date, and you can put a tag into it. So let's say a routing table for your reporting afterwards. All right, so you can start the new revision over here, and automatically you can now update the routing. All right, so you can also put it in progress over here, and you can update the routing here. So what you can do in the assembly, you can go into your steps over here, and you can say, we'll go here and we'll simply create a new routing, and we'll say for the product table, we want to have for the operation type manufacturing, we want a take a picture process for the work operations assembly, and here this time we will specify, please take a picture of the bottom left hand corner, and there you go. All right, so now in that new step, we have a message that appears on top of the instructions to take a picture. All right, so now I can go back to my change order. I can have it approved by my manager, and then you can put it into the effective status. All right, and allow to apply changes, which means that now you have the routing of your table assembly, which is up to date. If you go back to the table over here, then you go to the bill of materials, and you go to the routing. Okay, I'm not sure. Alright, version 2. No, it's okay. So actually, table assembly. Oh, I see what's going on over here. So the routing here is the table assembly. If I go to my product, assembly, All right, there you go. And it has indeed been changed to the new format, and it's indeed now version 2. All right. So that was for the PLM. Now, I think that covers that updates the the flow of what I wanted to cover with you. We have, I believe, covered all of these things. Now, a last comment about Odoo. Besides taking on the challenge of assembling all of your various operations in the same software, Odoo is also taking on the challenge of connecting the machines that you're using with software. And to do that, we have released the IoT box. The IoT box allows you, through an application that you can simply download onto your database, to connect a specific process with a machine. And the way it would allow you to do it on the shop floor level is with the hardware that you see over here. The hardware, this IoT box, comes automatically with your purchase of the Odoo subscription, and allows you, as we show you here on this graph, to connect screens, cameras, printers to a specific process in your operations. Um, it's to give you an example. For instance, if we take again that camera, that picture taking process that we have on the very first step of our assembly line, then instead of going into the computer and getting that image from the system, having to upload it beforehand and so on, we can simply connect the camera to that specific process in Odoo, and when we press on take a picture, the picture is uploaded automatically in the system. Um, and it saves you a lot of time, it saves you a lot of hassle. And if you want to make sure that your hardware is compatible with our IoT box, and that it works with the box, or if you don't have any hardware and you want to know what should be the best one to purchase to adapt to an Odoo flow, simply get in touch with us, and we'll try to help you with that. So that was it for me today. Thanks a lot for your time. If you want to discuss your project with us, you can simply email me at the email address that you see here at the bottom. It doesn't have to be only manufacturing. If you have a project with Odoo, simply get in touch, and I'll try my best to advise you. So that was it for my end. I'll simply have a look at your questions before I close it. So to do that, I'll simply go to the chat over here. So here I have a question from Chandarna. Hello, can you please explain how OEE target we can set? So just to show you that, 1 second. The OEE target that you can set, well, you can do it for every work center, and for every work center over here, if you go into the settings, you can set the target. So before I was playing around with it, I was changing it, and if you put, for instance, 90%, Odoo will update the color code of the actual OEE target that you have in the system, and show you that it's below what is expected. If it's just what you are doing at the moment, I believe we are at 69.05%. If you put 69.05% over here, well, it will change to orange to say that you are right on the target. And if you are above the target, well, the color will change to good. All right, so I hope that answered your question. So let me go to the next one. So I have a question here from Unica Industries. Good morning from Italy. I have some questions related to lean manufacturing with Odoo. Is it possible to create a Kanban cycles to manage the consumption of production components? Is it possible to accumulate Kanban in order only when the production path supply batch is reached? Is it possible to link the Kanban cycles with the production orders and create a production order when the Kanban is empty? So this seems to be a question on how to integrate lean manufacturing in Odoo. I think the best thing to do here, 1 second. So just to answer your first question, I don't think so. What you can do in Odoo, you can do what we call flexible consumption. That means that while you're performing specific operations in your assembly line, well, you can, instead of consuming 4 table legs, you can consume 5, 6, and you can record that product, that extra use during your manufacturing operations. And in the end, in the summary of your manufacturing order, you will always have a summary of everything that has been used, consumed, based on what was initially demanded. If you have consumed more than what you were expected to consume, the field will appear in orange to show you that something has been overly consumed over here. So it does keep track of it, and it does also notify you of it. So next question, is it possible to accumulate Kanban in order only when the production part supply batch is reached? When the production parts supply batch is reached. So I think here the answer might lie in the way that you trigger your manufacturing orders. Here I think it's something that has to do with your planning, and if you follow the beginning of the presentation, I hope that brings an answer to that question. Otherwise, please get in touch with me if I'm mistaken here. And then the third question you have, is it possible to link the Kanban cycles with the production orders and create the production order when the Kanban is empty? Again, I think it is a demand planning issue, and I hope I was able to answer that in the beginning of the presentation. Usually, however, in Odoo, as soon as you plan a manufacturing order for a specific amount of goods, that's it, and there is no relation with another manufacturing order. So the manufacturing orders are a result of the demand. You can trigger the demand in different rules, but once you have the individual manufacturing orders, besides being able to rearrange them on a Gantt chart view, for instance, there is no such thing, at least as far as I'm aware. So the next question from Hamza, can you explain for bill of materials of clothing industry? Can you please be more specific in the question? Maybe. In the meantime, what I'll show you is the bill of materials in Odoo. So here it's associated to every product, and what you can do, you will specify it here in terms of what to add to the system or not. And imagine if you're doing the clothing industry, you might want to choose different units, let's say grams or meters of wires and so on. You might something that you can manage in Odoo quite well. All you have to do is to add the unit of measure, the multiple unit of measure configuration in the system. So here, and then you can, for instance, you can create a product, let's say cloth. You can specify a new unit of measure for it. And then in the bill of materials, you can have a mix of, I'll just use centimeters over here. You can have various units within the bill of materials. Over here. Then you can save. and you can maybe work like that. So, and then the last question, sorry, what is time efficiency related to OEE? So the time efficiency, it relates to the standard time that you should, in theory, take to complete a specific work order. And if you go above it, well, the OEE will register that extra time as reduced speed, as we call it, and then it will indicate here in the OEE that here for the reduced speed, which is this part over here, um, about 25% of the manufacturing orders apparently are operating on reduced speed. It means that you are simply taking more time than what was expected in the beginning. Right? But what's cool about that is that the time that is associated to manufacturing operations is dynamic. So if you go to the manufacturing operations over here, as I said before, you can either specify a standard time for it, or you can do it based on real time. And then when you complete a manufacturing order, I will simply show you really quickly. If we complete, let's say, this manufacturing order, I'll do it really quickly. One sec. Just need to validate that and mark it as done. So when you mark it as done over here, when you close your manufacturing order, you have a cost analysis that is made based on the actual time that you took to make your actual good. And as we've covered before, in the work order, you can always find a trace of the time tracking that was there. And see, indeed, over here, the process was supposed to last 2 minutes and 29 seconds. In reality, it lasted 2 minutes and 49 seconds. So this extra time, it's simply reduced speed time. So I think that's it. I don't see more questions than that. So thanks a lot to all of you for joining today. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, please get in touch if you have any questions or would like to discuss your project in more detail. Thank you very much.